Well, it was interesting. He was very different when he first got here versus when the mic came on.
Right.
When he first got here, he pulls out the blowtorch and starts shooting this flamethrower in the middle of the hallway, and we're laughing and having. I'm like, he's gonna be easy. This is great.
Right.
And then we sat down, and then stiff right off the bat, and I'm just trying to massage it and get him going.
So in desperation, we're going to dig a tunnel, and maybe that tunnel will be successful, and maybe it won't.
I'm listening.
Yeah. I'm not trying to convince you it's going to work.
And are the people that you're...
Or anyone, they're all there on the internet. They're a projection of our limbic system. It's true.
No, it makes sense. And the thinking of it as a...
With over 67 million views on YouTube, the first Elon Musk appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience is by far the biggest podcast episode in Joe Rogan's YouTube channel, and it's up there with some of the biggest podcast episodes ever. Not only that, but it was also the first time somebody that massive like Elon Musk went on a YouTube comedy podcast, which was pretty wild at the time. And most people thought that it was a great podcast and had no complaints about it, but I clearly remember watching it and thinking that there was something way off about the conversation, and it was very awkward at some points. Now, I was a little bit under the influence back then, so I thought I was probably overanalyzing it, but after rewatching it again, it was very clear that the first 40 to 50 minutes was Joe Rogan struggling, trying to keep the conversation afloat and just trying to get anything from Elon Musk, but he was not helping out at all, creating some pretty awkward moments. And then after about 55 minutes, when they finally start talking about Teslas and how great they are, it looks like Elon Musk starts getting a little bit more comfortable and the conversation flows a little bit better. And I thought it would be fun to revisit this legendary episode. So let's get started.
But you do so many different things. Forget about the flamethrower. Like, how do you do all that other shit? Like, how does one decide to fix LA traffic by drilling holes in the ground? And who do you even approach with that? Like, when you have this idea, who do you talk to about that?
I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be successful or so, you know, I mean, it's just like asserting that it's going to be successful. So in desperation, we're going to dig a tunnel, and maybe that tunnel will be successful, and maybe it won't.
I'm listening.
Yeah. I'm not trying to convince you it's going to work.
And are the people that you're...
Or anyone.
But you are starting this, though. This is actually a project you're starting to implement, right?
Yeah, no, we've dug about a mile. It's quite long. It takes a long time to walk it.
Yeah. Now, when you're doing this, what is the ultimate plan? The ultimate plan is to have these in major cities and anywhere there's mass congestion and just try it out in LA first?
Yeah, it's in LA because I mostly live in LA. That's the reason. It's a terrible place to dig tunnels.
So when you have this idea, who do you bring this to?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, when you're implementing it, so you're digging holes in the ground. Like, you have to bring it to someone that lets you do it. Yeah,
so there were some engineers from SpaceX who thought it would be cool to do this, and the guy who runs it like day to day, Steve Davis. He's a longtime SpaceX engineer. He's great. So Steve was like, "I'd like to help make this happen." I was like, "Cool."
And I think it's important to emphasize that up to that point, all of Joe Rogan's podcasts were actually live streams. And no, he wasn't reading chat and thanking people for the gifted subs, but doing the podcast live is a huge part of what made it so successful and trusted, because doing it live meant that there was no editing and it was all there for everybody to see. And obviously because of that, you run the risk of something unexpected happening during the podcast and not being able to fix it. And for Rogan, that wasn't a problem because of all the experience that he's had talking in front of a live microphone. However, for inexperienced guests or for the first time that they did the podcast, it could be a problem and cause some pretty awkward moments. Obviously, the podcast will go down as a classic, and the fact that it's raw and authentic adds to that, but it was also very weird at times. For example, Joe Rogan starts a conversation by being a complete fanboy, which I think might have weirded out Elon Musk a bit. I don't know if you guys follow football, soccer, but there is a famous Messi interview where he's being interviewed and the journalist essentially breaks down, cries, and tells him how it was his dream to interview Messi. And Messi's response is so awkward. He just kind of leans back and goes like, he doesn't know what to do. He laughs as the journalist is like crying right in front of him. Obviously, this is a tiny version of that, but there were some moments where Joe Rogan was praising him a little bit too much.
So we started off with digging a hole in the ground. It's got like a permit for a pit, big pit, and just dug a big pit.
And you have to tell them what the pit's for, or you just say, hey, we just want to dig a hole?
No, you just fill out this form.
That's it.
Yeah, it was a pit in our parking lot.
But do you have to give them some sort of a blueprint for your ultimate idea? And do they have to approve it? Like, how does that work?
No, we just started off with a pit.
Okay.
Big pit. And, it's not really, they don't really care about the existential nature of a pit. You just say, like, I want a pit.
But you must understand there's not a whole lot of human beings like you. You know that, right? So you're an oddity.
Seems, yes.
To chimps like me.
We're all chimps.
Yeah, we are.
We're one notch above a chimp.
Some of us are a little bit more confused. When I watch you doing all these things, I'm like, how does this have all this time and all this energy and all these ideas, and then people just let him do these things?
Because I'm an alien.
That's what I've speculated.
Yes.
Now, to be fair, what made the first 50 minutes so rough and awkward is a combination of, yes, Rogan being a fanboy, but also Elon Musk being super tense and awkward while answering the questions. Because, I mean, if somebody like Joe Rogan is honestly asking you how you managed to be so cool, essentially pretending like it's a dumb question and not really giving an answer, it's not that productive, because it's a fair question. It's honestly a good question, because I do think that most people have this perspective and they think that CEOs like Elon Musk run around the company, the building, just telling people what to do, just, shouting ideas and giving a bunch of orders to different people. But as Joe Rogan finds out later, it's way less romantic than that. What actually happens is that you'll have an engineer, a worker who is part of this huge company. They'll bring up an idea to Elon Musk, and then Elon Musk will say, nah, or he'll say, yeah, I want that by next week.
Like, how the fuck do you have time to make the car dance ballet?
I mean, in that case, there were some engineers at Tesla that said, what if we make this car dance and play music? I was like, that sounds great. Please do it. Let's try to get it done in time for Christmas. We did.
But the next 20 minutes is mostly AI talk, which is not that interesting aside from a few awkward moments that were pretty funny. By the way, we're so close to hitting 100,000 subscribers. So if you could do me a huge favor, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps out so much, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
And the percentage of intelligence that is not human is increasing. And eventually, we will represent a very small percentage of intelligence. But the AI is informed, strangely, by the human limbic system. It is, in large part, our id writ large.
How so?
Well, we mentioned all those things, the sort of primal drives.
Mm-hmm.
There's all the things that we like and hate and fear. They're all there on the internet. They're a projection of our limbic system. It's true.
No, it makes sense. And the thinking of it as thinking of corporations and just thinking of just human beings communicating online through these social media networks as some sort of an organism it's a cyborg. This is
in some measure, like, it's the success of these online systems is sort of a function of how much limbic resonance they're able to achieve with people. The more limbic resonance, the more engagement.
Now, it is possible that back then, Elon Musk wasn't media trained on having personal conversations, if that makes sense. Like, if you watch a lot of his stuff, a lot of his conferences, interviews, and all that YouTube stuff, he dunks on people and comes across as a super genius that basically has an answer for every single thing. But then when it comes to having a simple conversation about literally nothing just for fun, he struggles. Because think about it, as rich as Joe Rogan is right now or was back then, he is way closer to us financially than he is to Elon Musk. So because of that, as much as Elon Musk tries to seem relatable by wearing an old black Occupy Mars t-shirt, it just doesn't translate. And because of that, Joe Rogan was struggling, just fishing, trying to get anything from him, until eventually, after 35 long minutes, he makes him laugh when talking about chimps, which is surprising.
No. I mean, when's the last time you talked about chimps?
Me?
Yeah.
All the time.
You do?
Talking to the wrong guy.
Unfortunately.
Good
Okay.
podcast. Dude, I talk about chimps
Chimp
every
City?
other episode.
Okay.
People are laughing right now. Yeah, constantly.
Okay.
I'm obsessed. I saw that David Attenborough documentary on chimps. I
Rough.
saw that
It's
many years
gruesome.
ago. It just
Gruesome.
changed how I go, oh, this is why people are so crazy. We came from that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
a
the
cousin of that
bonobos.
thing. Yeah.
They got a better philosophy.
Yeah, they're like
Yeah.
yeah, they really are. They seem to be way more, even than us, way more civilized.
They just seem to resolve everything with sex.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the bonobo movie.
Well, they're disturbing just at a zoo. You know, you have bonobos at the zoo.
They're just constantly going.
Constantly. Yeah. Like, that's all they do.
Just won't stop.
Yeah, and they don't care. Gay, straight, whatever. Let's just with these labels.
I haven't seen bonobos at a zoo. It's probably like
I don't think I
not
have
in the,
either.
not in the PG section.
Yeah, I don't think they have them at many zoos. We've looked that up before
Yeah,
too.
it's
didn't we?
probably pretty
Yeah.
awkward.
And you also got to give Joe Rogan a lot of credit for this, because as hard as it was to talk to Elon Musk, Joe Rogan was able to keep the conversation afloat and going like no one else would have been able to. It's insane. To go from being super awkward and tense to being comfortable enough to laugh out loud at the idea of bonobos f***ing each other, it's definitely not easy. And then to go from that to having a serious conversation about how people misuse social media or how they're affected by it and other stuff about life, again, it's not easy to do. Keep in mind that this was only 35 minutes into the podcast, and then it starts to flow a little bit better. The conversation flows a lot better when they start talking about how great Teslas are, and he's able to go in sales mode, essentially.
Someone's going to be looking at a Tesla like that. Dude, these f***ing back doors, they pop up sideways like a Lamborghini.
You should see what a Tesla can do. You didn't. You should. I'll show you afterwards.
Well, I've driven one. I love them.
Yeah, but most people don't know what it can do.
In terms of like ludicrous mode.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be.
Well,
Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. Make it maximum fun.
do you have an old car, don't you? Don't you have like an old Jaguar?
Yeah, how'd you
Yeah.
know that? That's most people don't know that. I have a 61 Series 1 E-Type Jaguar.
I love cars.
It's great.
Yeah, I love old cars. That's
The-
one of the
the
things.
the only two gasoline cars I have are that and an old like a Ford Model T that a friend of mine gave me. That's those my only two gasoline cars.
Now, it's completely normal for anybody that goes on the Joe Rogan Experience to organically plug something in or advertise something. And obviously, when it comes to Elon Musk, it's impossible to talk to him and not bring up Tesla. But it almost felt like he wasn't feeling the conversation until they started talking about Teslas and he was able to go into sales mode. But it could also be that he was not comfortable and it took exactly 55 minutes and a little bit of whiskey for him to relax and actually open up. But regardless, the last hour and 30 minutes went a lot better, a lot smoother, and about 2 hours and 10 minutes is when that legendary moment happened, when they sparked up and broke the internet essentially back then. And I mean, it's not only my opinion, because Rogan himself said that episode with Elon Musk was a big part of why he stopped doing the live streams. And I get it. I mean, he got too big. He got so massive that it's just a big risk, a huge risk, to be doing live streams while getting drunk and talking to the elites and people that have a lot of power.
Some people, like Elon, took a while. Like we had to start drinking.
No, that was brutal. Yeah. But that, I mean, you know how much I tried to micromanage that behind the scenes,
Yes,
right? Like I was
and
all
thank
in
you for that.
your grill, trying to figure that out. I mean, the problem for me there with that podcast, frankly, was that I feel like you both got unlucky with just where he was in his life at that moment. I mean, because what that podcast showcased, at least for the first, I don't know, 90 minutes, was just how many user interface problems you could have with Elon, right? Like he just showed up as kind of fairly weird, right? He's not always like that by any stretch. I mean, he can give a very loose interview. But you were working, I mean, it was just absolutely heroic work trying to keep that conversation happening, in the beginning.
But once we got loose, that was good.
But it was still, it's like, he was just in a space that he was so massively stressed and so overworked, and just, I mean, he had, fires everywhere that had to be put out. And
well, it was interesting. He was very different when he first got here versus when the mic came on.
Right.
When he first got here, he pulls out the blowtorch and starts shooting this flamethrower in the middle of the hallway, and we're laughing and having. I'm like, he's gonna be easy. This is great.
Right.
And then we sat down, and then stiff right off the bat, and I'm just trying to massage it and get him going.
Now, I don't really buy that excuse or that explanation that he wasn't in the best headspace or in the best mood because of whatever was going on with Tesla or his companies, because then why do the podcast at all? He doesn't have to do it. And Rogan himself said that before the podcast, they were actually messing around so that he thought it was going to be an easy one. Now, is there a chance that maybe Elon didn't know that it was a live podcast? I doubt it. I mean, a lot of people did consume the show once it was fully uploaded to the YouTube channel and not actually as it was happening live. But I doubt it. There's no way that was actually what happened. So what I think really happened is that in reality, Elon Musk wasn't ready to do a live stream, and Joe Rogan wasn't really prepared to talk to Elon Musk. Think about it. Back then, and even now, it's really hard to do a 3-hour podcast if you're not 100% yourself and if you don't have experience. It's a tough thing to do, even now that they're edited. But back then, it was 100% live. And not only that, it was the biggest platform out there. So it was clearly a big deal and not an easy thing to do. But I do agree that Joe Rogan handled it perfectly. He was able to keep the conversation going even when it was pretty tough. And really the majority of the criticism was towards Elon Musk for looking a little bit weird and awkward during the podcast. And also by Elon Musk going on the Joe Rogan Experience, it was probably one of the smartest things he could do for Tesla. And it was the most successful Tesla advertisement ever. Think about it. Back then and still now, Joe Rogan is considered the man's man, and anything that he would endorse would completely explode and create an industry for supplements, saunas, cold plunges, and even a lot of comedians. So if Elon Musk went on there and was able to get Joe Rogan to tell everybody how much he loved Teslas, which he did, I mean, it was game over. Think about it. A lot of people do hate Teslas just simply because they're not a real car or they're electric, same way that they hate Priuses. So, I mean, by having that Joe Rogan endorsement and then Joe Rogan on multiple podcasts after that, continuing to say how the P100E was the craziest car ever made and that driving a gas car doesn't make any sense. It was a smart thing to do for Tesla, I think. And so I think it was a win-win for both of them. Now, the last thing I did want to point out was Joe Rogan's choice to wear that shirt. Now, don't get me wrong. I like pink dress-up shirts. I think they look nice with suits and all that. But the way that he was wearing it just wasn't the best. It was similar to the ones that he wears on stage, just like oversized. And it was maybe an attempt to look professional, which I don't know why. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. It helps out so much. And I really appreciate it. Follow me on Instagram if you would like to connect. Dislike if you didn't like the video. But that is all we have for today. See ya.